Hi, this is Ray Duggan, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Man, I love it. I love that we get to do this. I don't know anybody else. I know there's like the Spy Museum and all that, they do their thing, but we get to talk to real people who really did the job. Who look, no one's coming and knocking on your door to ask you about this stuff because for the most part, we don't have a pin, we don't have a beret. You say
Right.
Army CI. No, people in the Army, military intelligence officers don't know what counterintelligence is or does and everything. And so, if not for us talking, and you and me, Pete Jensen, John Murray, who's down the road in Texas, Paul Holtzclaw, all these people that I've had on the show talking about, man, I love that we get to do this.
I enjoy it. I watch the program often, and I
Uh,
really like hearing it. But the thing, I don't want people knocking at my door. Frankly, I'm glad that ain't happening. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, I'm sure, that don't like me. you know. But yeah,
yeah,
like you said, a lot of the MI officers, the people in the military, when I was in, they didn't know what was going on. You had to explain
yeah,
yourself constantly. You had to show them regulations, and even if you showed them regulations, those aren't my regulations, And
right.
then you got a mission to do that. This many people know what you're doing. A handful, and that's it.
And they're all on your
So
team.
yeah, well, there's times too that you work on the team. Um, when I was in Europe, I was working on teams, and people on the team didn't know what I was doing. I had mission from the commander that they had no idea I was doing. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So you could be working with someone right next to you and they don't know. They have no idea.
I often say to my friends, if you were to see me working in a combat zone, even outside the camp, you wouldn't think I was working at all. It was looking like I'm having a great time. I'm having a conversation. I'm not talking a whole lot, probably. And I'm just always on the go because my job is to interact with a bunch of people, right? And build this network of people who trust me to give me access to the right people. And so I'm always talking to people when I'm working, whether I'm on the American camp or I'm in town.
Right? Well, I pushed that a lot when I was in the schoolhouse to change the counterintelligence program because they had like an hour and a half of elicitation and an hour and a half of each individual block of instruction. And these kids weren't learning anything, and the people that were coming in, I hated that we had people off the street, that had no idea even what the military was, let alone counterintelligence. They thought they
Yeah.
were, oh, I'm the secret spook spy. So,
Yeah.
that's what they thought. But, there's key things that they're looking for that you need to know, like elicitation. Like you said, you could be sitting out on the street, sitting at a cafe, and it looks like you're just having a coffee or a beer or whatever, but you're looking at everybody around you, or you speak a myriad of languages like I did and other people did, and or you're trained in a language and you're listening to the people that are next to you while you're having a conversation with somebody next to you and they can be speaking another language, and here you are, you're sucking in all this information that you have to take in, and you can't sit there and write in your book, hey, they said this, they said that, or they're going to do this, they're going to do that. You have to know what you're doing, and they don't teach it enough in school to know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And this is how I pull in the information. And you have to be intelligent enough to keep the information in your head so that when you walk away from there, then you're writing down, scribbling down notes when you're alone and you're, setting up briefings. And now I got to set this up and oh, this is going to answer this IR or this PIR, or now I need to add an IR to it, set it up the chain and say, hey, this is what I'm hearing on the street. And they're like, hey, I drove by and I saw you in the cafe. What are
Yeah.
you doing? You said you're out there, you're working. You know, I'm working, man. I'm working. But, you know,
Yeah.
like
That's
I
so
said,
great.
a lot of people don't get the training. I was
Mhm.
lucky enough. I was recruited into the counterintelligence program. I was in the military before, and there were two classes going on, one for people who were just coming in the military, and then a group of us. We had some MISEP people, we had some DOD people, and then there was about 12 of us military people. I actually went to school with Brian Zach, you know him. And couple others that have
Yeah.
gone on and done good things. And
So
you
let's
know,
back up. Let's back up real quick because when you talk about the you deploy a counterintelligence agent, right? There you go. They're a counterintelligence agent level 1. That's how I came in. I came in off the street. I didn't know how to even process acronyms. It's one thing to know the acronyms. It's another thing to know that they've changed several times. They still mean basically the same thing. For a time, psyops was miso, and then it went back to psyops, right? Like you have to know these things. And so when someone speaks the language, even if you don't know what it is, you can get pretty close. Like a TIF kicker. What the hell's a TIF kicker? And then you got to sort that out, and you're like, hey, what is it? And then you learn that TIF is always task force. Like it's just,
right.
and so you'll start to break down like TIF kick. Oh, it's CI, CI is probably in there. So you learn how to process these things, but you're right off the street. And then you get an hour and a half on elicitation. I
Like
mean,
nothing.
that's nothing. And so like right now, there's a guy who's just got his letter. He's gonna go to the intelligence school, and he's gonna become a counterintelligence agent. And he's been talking to me, and I'm like, hey, look, here's the thing. You have to know your regs, because like you said, you opened with this. You can know the regs. You can wave them in someone's face. But if they say no, or our badge, is there a less important badge than the counterintelligence agent's badge? You show that to someone, which I've done.
They're
I've
like,
done
what
that.
is that?
They're like,
What
what
is
is
that?
that? I'm like, it's a badge. It's really important. And now you're
Right.
explaining your badge, which is
Mine
so
had
far
funk
from
and
where you
stuff
need to
all
be.
over it from crawling in the mud.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
They when they did my badge for when I retired, it took them a week to clean it. It was that bad. But yeah, like
Yeah.
the guy who's going in, you're saying getting into the regs. What regs? I mean, when I went to school, it was 3 feet high worth of books. And
It's still
then
3 feet high.
then you have the INSCOM regulations. Or if
Uh-huh.
you're a purple people leader, you're with the DIA and you got DIA regulations and all the diams to work through. Or if you're working in operations, you got operations manuals. This is what we were talking about the other day. There's 128 different jobs that are just jobs for a counterintelligence agent that you could be in, and you don't even know you're going to. You
Yeah.
know, like what's the 165th? What's the 650th? What is? I'm going to Bragg. What am I going to do at Bragg? I'm airborne, so
Yeah.
okay. I'm going to be airborne. Am I infantry? Am I a counterintelligence agent? Am I doing force protection? Where do you go? You're telling this guy to look at regs. 90% of them are classified. So you're not
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
them home. You can't look at them anywhere but in, the schoolhouse or in your office once you get there. And when you're at the school, they don't let you take the books home. They're like, okay, leave that stuff here. What you learned today, you can talk about when you're with your buddies, but you know, you can't bring this stuff home.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. And so the way I'm approaching this with him is to say you need to know these basic regulations. These are all unclassified regulations. He can get the other ones later, but not only to know that they exist and have a bit of a command for them, but also know that they unlock to other things. And I'm always saying PAMs, TAMs, pubs, everything, right? You have
Well, see,
all
there's
of these.
acronyms right there, Pete.
Yeah, right.
PAMs, TAMs, and pubs.
Yeah,
What the hell are you talking about? People are like, what?
yeah,
What? It's
right.
like you're
And that
carrying this in your
stack,
pocket.
as you say, that stack is like 12 feet high. But if you know how to work that stack and you know how to have some charm with your stack of, because like you said, you can say, well, 381, whatever, it doesn't, I don't care about that. Yeah, but you're enjoying, you have to. And then, yeah, I'm a captain. You're
I'm
I don't know, an
enjoying.
E5, whatever. I
Right.
ain't doing it. And you're like, okay, well, that didn't work. So you can't lean on the pubs, but you do have to have that foundation, right? You do have to have that. But you're right. You have to have the reps of asking questions. And then what happens if you end up on the strategic electronic side of counterintelligence?
There you go. TSCM, or you're doing computer forensics.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have a book sitting next to me of all the training that I've been through. And I've been through computer forensics. Or if you're in a unit, the unit oversees the 650th, they had FCA, they had computer forensics, they had TSCM, they had agents, active agents like myself that were on the ground doing the human stuff. They had SIGINT, they had regular people that are operations that are doing their job. And what are you going to do when you hit the ground? They know what you're going to do. You know, what schools have you been to? Have you been through basic surveillance? Have you been through laboratory for scientific interrogation? You've been through Reed? Have you been through uh, JCETA? You know,
Mhm.
what levels are you going to be at? Because you're reporting at national level stuff there. Or like when I started, I was in the 25th Infantry Division. You know, I hit there. That was a joke. Oh my God. I was supposed to go to the 500th. I had orders to the 500th. I hit the ground in the airport, and there's a military guy there. It said military liaison, great big sign, military liaison. Sign in here. So, okay, I went over, I signed in, waited for my ride to the 500th, right? We got on the bus. They took me to the 25th Infantry Division. I signed in over there. So I lost my spot at the 500th, ended up at the 25th. But but it was one of the best things that ever happened to me
Oops.
because of the people that were there. The chief warrant officer was Dave Akeda, and that guy was on school all the time. He had an MTT team come down from FCA and teach us basic surveillance. We went through the whole course. And thankfully, our battalion commander was able to talk to division commander, brigade and division, to say, hey, these guys need to be off for this amount of time to be able to go through these courses, because if they don't know what they're doing in their job. So we did laboratory for scientific interrogation. We went through quintillion, lock picking, and then we went through the basic surveillance, like I said, along with going through uh, the basic infantry courses, uh, the myriad of things that you have to do while you're in the 25th Infantry Division. Learn how to give somebody an IV, you know, and start them back up when they're dying. And light infantry doesn't mean that, you know, it's light on your back. It's heavy on your back because you don't have any damn trucks. And I'm like, what is this?
And how about the sergeant major from that light infantry is like, what do you guys do? How much do you carry? Oh, good. I'm going to put more stuff on your
Right.
back because you don't have enough stuff because you got to support the unit.
You only
These
got
are
80
great.
pounds?
Right. Yeah. These are great notes because, you know, when you go out and patrol, you have to support that unit. So maybe you're in a different situation. We talk tactically, though. Man, I mean, that's my world. And if you're not relevant to the command, it's great to think that you collect great intel and you're adorable with your reports that nobody reads. But if you're not impacting command and staff decisions, you're irrelevant. And if you're irrelevant, you don't need to be on a patrol. You stay here and you can go read somebody else's reports and process those. Thanks.
Right. Well, command and staff has its own little major problems because
Yeah.
you say you're an E4, you know, you're going into a unit. This guy who you're talking to on the phone saying he's going into counterintelligence, you know, what is he? Is he E4? Is he E6? Is he a lieutenant? What's he going in as? And if
Yeah.
he doesn't have anything on his shoulder, that's the first thing that they look at. That's why they put us in civilian clothes, so we don't have to go through that. And now you're like, are you in the Army? That's the first thing they ask. Are you in the Army? Well, I'm an
Yeah.
agent. What do you mean you're an agent? What does that
Yeah.
mean? What rank is that? You know,
Right.
I had to brief a general in Kosovo because we got into a big tiff with the G2, okay, for NATO's G2, because their guys who were from NATO were reporting this one thing. And then on the other side, we were reporting completely against it. So the G2 calls me in and he's yelling at me in my face. And I'm like, you know, here's the phone. Call my commander. I don't work for you, man. You know, I
Yeah.
support you, but I don't work for you. And then we had to brief this general and the major who was down there, Pakovic. He and me went over to the skiff to brief this guy on what we actually do. And Pakovic's running the slides, and I'm briefing the general. And he's like, well, what's your rank? And I told him, and he said, what's your rank? And Pakovic told him, and he's like, well, why aren't you briefing me? Why is he briefing me? I said, I'm the senior agent. He doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. You know, he doesn't know about the operations. All he
Right.
does is tag along, you know, and he eventually went to JCETA and the advanced courses, you know, and he learned how to do the job. But at that point in time, the colonel at the time, he was great. Anyway, he called me up and he's like, give him the full brief. And I'm like, really? The full brief? this is the general in charge of the NATO forces down there. And I'm like, you want him to know everything that's going on. And then he tells me, make him sign an NDA. And I'm like, he's a general officer.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what's an NDA? A non-disclosure agreement that
Yeah.
says whatever I tell you, you're not allowed to tell anybody else. Because
Yeah.
we can't have him running his mouth about what's going on. And now,
Oh
how do
man.
I explain this? These are the guys who support me. And I got to tell him, look, everything that you thought I was doing, what I told you I was doing, is a
Oh man.
lie. Is
Yeah.
a lie. You know, here's what we're really doing. Here's the messages from the skiff that we're sending out. And oh, by the way, we're doing some other stuff too here that you might not like us doing. And you want some scotch? I can help you with that. You know?
So this is great. You're getting exactly where I love for us to be, because I always say the most dangerous place for me when I'm deployed is in staff. You know, those guys will shank me and leave me bleeding. I've been kicked off of American camps because I bring a lot of bad news. Like, hey man, your shit's not working. Do you want to work on fixing? Commanders love it, but staff hates it because they're getting fed a bunch of bullshit internally that I can go out and say, hey, if all of that's true, how is X also true? You know, like for example, let's say there's a radio program and PSYOPs guys are doing, and the EWO, the electronics warfare officer, is like, yeah, the radio is blasting out at 50 megahertz. It can be heard in a 50-mile circle. So I bring a radio out. You know, this is not very sexy spy stuff, but you go out and you turn you're like, no channel there. No, like, yeah, actually, sir, I took a radio out and I stood in this spot. I stood in this spot and I stood in this spot. I couldn't find your guys' stations. You want to see a commander lose his mind, you
Right.
know, when he realizes that these stuff. So internally, I was very dangerous. And so I had to learn to protect myself with a network of commanders internally. So let's put that on the thing. The other thing is what the military thinks they want you to do. The IRs, the information requests that they write internally are never as good, if you're a good collector, as the stuff you'll go out and get for them. I will
Right.
bring you stuff that you will find important and actionable. I didn't personally focus on threat because there are so many people focused on threat. There were all these other things, all of these other systems that were failing. So sure, if there was a bomb coming, people would tend to tell me because I was trustworthy, and I would send them over to Dave over there. Talk to Dave. That's Dave's job.
Right.
So that I didn't sully what I did. So that's one of the things I wanted to bring in is internally how hard it is for us to operate, even within our own unit. I mean, you know, if you stand out in CI, you tend to get smashed by CI.
Quick, we eat our own.
Yeah.
And that's a bad thing. And that's, you know, a lot of the stuff that's done is compartmentalized. Um, you know, only a certain amount of people know what's going on, know what you're doing, know what your job is. But you have to take the initiative, and you can't teach this. You have to just be able to take the initiative that when you're out, do an area assessment. If you're not doing anything else, look around and say, hey, this is a vulnerable spot. This is a high risk target. This is easy, you know, access into your camp when you're
Right.
out with a team, so that you can tell something to the commander that helps him, you know. But again, one of the 128 jobs in the counterintelligence field.
Yeah.
What are you? Are you tactical? Are you stractical, which is strategic and tactical? Are you strategic? Are you area intelligence? Are you FCA? Are you DIA? What's the job? When you were working
Mhm.
as a contractor over in Iraq, you know, who were you working with? The commander, the tactical team? You know, how did you get out of the camp, you know, and be able to work without 6 trucks behind you and a bunch of infantry guys that are standing out? They're like, why is this guy talking? You know, what are
Yeah.
we doing here? They want to
Yeah.
shoot somebody, you know, not that, you know,
When I would go out, once I had built up my system and I knew what I was doing, I would tell the LT who was running that patrol, like, "Hey, man, everybody should just be smiling and waving," because we were on combat patrols. You're always looking, but they were looking so hard and so nastily. They were causing a wake and I had to learn this by looking around. Like I'd go back behind us and talk to people. I'm like, "How are things going?" And they're like, "Well, fuck those guys." And I'm like, oh shit, that's not why we're here, you know. And so I had to train these units to just smile and wave, hey, how you doing, you know, and
right,
lighten up the spirit a little bit. I mean, think about that. Like that is an absolute intel function. You know, you're talking about protect the force. Well, quit acting like dicks when you walk through town. Yes, you're
right,
on a combat patrol. Yes, be in a formation. No, don't knock people over. Smile, wave, be nice. you think about that, and you bring that to a commander, and now and the command you have to have enough influence with the commander to be like, "What do you mean? These are presence patrols, yes, combat patrols, but we're supposed to be making friends." And I'm like, "Well, we're not."
Make some
You know,
friends. I want to shoot somebody.
I want to shoot
Uh,
somebody, right? And
well,
so then
I
you're like,
mean,
"Yeah, yeah,
they look at you and they say, "Well, why don't you go out with psyops then?" And they don't understand that psyops has their own job, and
mhm,
you as a collector, if somebody finds out that they're meeting with the mayor of that town, and you want to meet with the mayor of that town, you want presence, you want to be able to walk into his office, and they got a meeting with them, so you want to go with them. But if they find out that you're collecting on them for
oh
some
boy,
reason, the wrong questions are asked. Like, why are you asking that question? Why are you asking about, how much money's coming in or who's supporting you or, you know, where egress is in and out? These guys are talking about, I want to build you a school. That's what they're there for. And you throw a question in that's wrong. Who taught you that? Who
yeah,
taught you that? Have you ever had a gun held to your face?
yeah,
They're like, you're in the wrong place, buddy.
hmm
Why are you doing that? And then PsyOps doesn't want to work with you anymore. And then you're like, oh my God, they go back and they report to ops, hey, this guy blew my operation. And now we got to make lovey dovey with this guy, get the pile of money out. And they got that much money, you know,
double,
in
yeah,
yeah, in
in
cases.
hundreds,
They
yeah,
carry it in cases, for God's sake. There
yeah.
you go. Hey, we can build you a school. Check this out. But anyway, that's another thing.
Yeah, well, you're getting into the nit and the grit of what happens in the tactical world, and
That's just
so
a That's just the tactical world.
that's just the tactical world, right? Yeah, I mean, there are so many jobs. Like, I was thinking about. I'm just using some more acronyms and funny words, but for Micah and strategic debriefers, I've never met anybody who did that for a living, and I know there's probably 1,000 people who do that stuff for a living or regularly. And so there's some people. The world is so vast and on the counterintelligence plane that it's hard to understand how big it is. And let me ask you this: when I hear people talk about it, people who work on the strategic side, they get to do cool shit. And I'm not saying that they don't; they of course do. But I don't think you can go and develop your chops on the strategic side and then be a good tactical collector. These worlds
Um,
don't translate in both directions. You can probably go tactical to hard strategic, but I think tactical is just too complex that you cannot have an ego at all in tactical collection. You have to get so many people's favor on your side because you're helpless, right? You can't just go walk around in a village in Iraq by yourself. You'll get snatched up. So, what are your thoughts on tactical versus strategic, or any of those other, more darker arts of the counterintelligence world? Can you go
well,
from tactical to those things, and can you come back to tactical if you've already been over there?
I think you can, and it is what you make of it and who you have commanding you. Like I said, Dave Akeda in the 25th Infantry Division. That was my first hello, welcome to the 25th Infantry Division. But he parlayed for us to get all these schools, and that it was something I was learning. And then we did an exchange with the MI6 and MI5 over in Hong Kong, where I got to go out of the whole platoon. They selected me. I have no idea why, but they selected me to go over and work with MI5 and MI6 in Hong Kong. Uh, it was a real world mission. It was good. It was collection. It was working with them, doing what they're doing, see how we can do cross border. And I had to go to the embassy over there so that they told me, hey, don't do this, don't screw this up. So this is tactical. You get
Yeah.
to do MTTs, you get to do TDYs if you're in the right unit with the right people. Now,
Mm,
if you got a sorry warrant that doesn't know what they're doing or a command that doesn't want to spend any money, then you don't learn anything. You're in the 82nd Airborne, which our buddy John was in, John Murray, Seamus McGillicuddy.
that's right.
Anyway, he was started out as infantry, started out as that paratrooper and everything, and then he knew the language and he was one of them. He had the tabs on his shoulder, he had the tabs on his shirt, and as long as you can walk in and wear the uniform and you got that stuff, you got instant cred.
Yeah.
Where if I walk in, and I'm in my suit and tie because that's what they told me to freaking wear instead of
Yeah.
some street clothes, And I walk in and I'm like, hey, I'm here to help you. And by the way, I need food, I need lodging, I need this and that. You know, that ain't helping. I got 6 guys back here who are on my team that, I need to feed, clothe, put freaking the bed under their feet, and your money has to help me. And
I
they're
need
like,
access to your
yeah,
patrols
right.
too.
I need what? You need what? And where do you fall into the command? And how are you going to do this? Now
Oh,
that's
you have no
tactical.
authority over me at all. No.
No,
Right,
but that's
exactly.
tactical. You know,
That is. It
my
is.
experience in tactical. And when I left, I went to BNOC after I left the 25th Infantry Division. And I got to see a myriad of people who were quote unquote tactical, and people who were operational, and people who were stractical. They weren't even strategic. And let me tell you about a bunch of people who were out there. Okay. Some of the guys were great and went on to do great things. Became great warrant officers that I got to work with, Dave Hammond and Burt Whitlow, and all these other guys. But they were looking at it too, and they're like, "Why are they teaching us this stupid shit?" And then there's people that can't hump a ruck. You got to help them, and they don't know
Yeah.
anything about tactical. They can't shoot, move, and communicate, which is basic Army skills.
Yep.
But if you have some type of training, and in the tactical field, you can go to a strategic field. I went to an operations field. I went to the Army Material Command. I was supposed to go to the farm to Vent Hill, and on the way to Vent Hill, something happened at AMC, because AMC controls Vent Hill. And they're like, hey, we need you at the headquarters. We want you to run the whole shop up here. And I'm like, what the hell? We mean run what shop? They're like, well, you're going to be in charge of physical security for a MACOM. And I'm like, what the hell's a MACOM? I ain't dealt with a MACOM. I got there and they're like, you're in charge of 13 major subordinate commands that have all these things. And major subordinate commands are above divisions, are above corps. They're huge, huge units. And a major command, there's only 7 major commands in the military at the time. I don't know what they got now, but you know, and I'm in the largest MACOM in the military, and they're like, hey, yeah, we got a 4-star general who sits upstairs who you're going to brief every day. You're going to give a black book to. And I'm like, what's a black book? I just came out of a tactical infantry unit and BDOC, and now you're sending me to Army Material Command to do all this other stuff. You want to talk about getting in regulations for 2 weeks? I didn't do anything. Oh, they're not controlled by INSCOM. They're controlled by DIA. So now I'm into DIAMs. They're like, well, we're controlled by the Purple People Eaters. Oh, we got backstopping going on next door in your skiff. And we also have 125 SAPs going on that are farther down in the skiff. The skiff was freaking huge, right? Oh, well, it's your skiff. And you have to control all the classified in here. You got to be read
Oh
on to
man.
everything.
I gotta jump in because when you talk about this and then you're like, well, you guys are changing your combinations on your safe every 30 days, right? You'll get laughed out of the room. Like
Right. There
they
was
don't
open source. It was
yeah,
an open, as long as it was in the skiff, there was serious classified laying out everywhere. We had a
yeah,
clean desk policy, but none of the safes were locked. They didn't know the combinations to their safes. We had a
right.
vault door that was 2 feet thick, that you had to open every day to get into this thing. And then once you're in, you got to open another door with a code. And then once you're in that space and it's closed, then I can get you into the other door that brings you into the skiff. It's
Let's just
incredible.
I want to just pause right here because this is when we talk about top secret SCI being on someone's server in their house. That means that someone walked in through all of those gates, some of them video, and walked out with some kind of level of email illegally, right? And then we're
Right.
told that it's not against the law. And guys like us, we're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton. And I'm just
Yeah.
using her as an example. As anybody who knows me knows that I'm a conservative to beat the band. But I look at her and everybody's jumping down her crowd. Oh, her server had this. Do you think that Hillary Clinton built the server that's in her house? Do you think that she had the access put into the SCI material that she had in her house with no, you know, safeguards or anything on that? She had Secret Service at her house because her husband was the president and she was, the first lady at the time. Not at that time, she was in charge of the state. State Department, but she had Secret Service. So as long as that server was above 15 feet high, and there might have been a bar on the door or bars on the windows, or you have active security that are armed, that's a skiff. Nobody's saying that. Look at the DIAM. Look at Annex 12 in the freaking DIAM that controls skiffs, and you'll find that information out. Everybody's, oh, look, she should go to jail. No, she shouldn't. No, she shouldn't. But she's not going to fight it. She doesn't have to fight it. You know, she's Secretary of State. She's so many levels above what's going on. Is it right? No, no. You got it in your house. Who has access to this place? Her daughter? You know, her husband, who's not the president anymore. He's not read on. He's not getting briefings. But, you know, she's doing pillow talk with him. Well, maybe not. It's Hillary Clinton, but, you know.
All right, let's get off of this. Let's get back over to the other side now. So when we're talking about all the different jobs and the leadership within counterintelligence, you know, there's a lot of things to do, to NCO up, to officer, you know, people through. You talked about a good unit you're in. I would call into question the 165th. We went and did incredible things in Bosnia, but not because we had a strong command or a strong first sergeant, from my point of view. So when you go to a place, what does it take, man? How long does it take to become a good agent in general, and specifically a tactical agent? Like, when do you know, like, oh, I actually can do this? I'm actually at enough command of all of this stuff that anywhere, any fight, tactically, you can put Pete anywhere, and I will be able to contribute instantly, and probably take the unit 3 weeks to figure it out. But that's just a cycle of information, right?
Right. But
So,
for you,
yeah,
Pete, you're that kind of person. When
right,
I came in, I was recruited. I was assessed to come into the counterintelligence program. I was
right.
working on nukes, getting ready to get out. And they're like, the guy who used to give us the briefings about the Red Brigade, who you talked to me, and I spoke a couple of languages at the time. And they're like, hey, he appears up in the desert where I'm at, McGregor Range, New Mexico. He's like, hey, you want to come work with us? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you want to be a counterintelligence agent? We'd like you to work for us. And I'm like, what is it? Tell me. He's like, sign the paperwork and I'll tell you what you're going to do. But what you're saying, Pete, you never know. There's a lot of times I'm like, they're going to catch me. They're going to catch me because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. You know, I'm scared to death out here because I'm doing an independent op, like in Croatia. I'm running around that place. There's people that want to kill me every freaking where, you know, and all I got is a linguist in tow who I used part of the time, really good guys, but they were contractors, you know, and they're like, I'm not going in there with you. I'm not going down there. I'm like, come on, we're going because it's just me and you, and we got to go. And I'm playing a role, you know. I'm the head of security for S-Force, so I can got access to everything, right? No, no, you got to meet with the bad guys. You got to meet with the Serb side. You got to meet with the other side. And how do you know if you're right for it? You're just that kind of person. You have sat with people, I know you have, in the
Yeah,
165th, who you looked at and you said, how in the hell did you become an agent? And you know
yeah,
what they do in their whole career? Nothing. Nothing.
yeah,
They don't go to the strategic unit. They don't go to FCA. They're not doing, you know, that independent mission. Every time you see them, they're in operations. They're, you know, but they think they're making rank, you know, because they're in the jobs that make rank. They're
yeah,
not the guys who are out there on the ground like yourself as an E4, you know, in the 165th. You could pound the ground by yourself. You could write the reports. You could assess people. You know how to do liaison with people and how to talk to somebody, where you got people that can't even talk. We had a guy, you know, God bless him. We had a guy in the 25th Infantry Division who was super religious, you know,
oh,
which is a great thing. God bless you. Okay. And he didn't want to go and lie and cheat and steal because it was against his religion. We're like, you're going to operations and working the S2.
hmm. This
You
is a
know,
real thing, man. We had a Mormon guy come through the Counterintelligence Force Protection Source Operation Course, CIFSO, and he's Mormon. And I'm like, you have to get over it. You're going to have to eat things you don't want to eat, drink things you don't want to drink, and you're
oh,
going to
yeah.
have to. Everybody's got to believe you when they see you, because no one's going to hand me medium rare farm raised pork in Bosnia and have me go, I'm not eating that. If my eating it might lead to people getting blown up. Of course I'm going to eat it. Of course I'll take dysentery. Of course
Try
I'll
my
drink
Sleevo.
whiskey with an Iraqi guy during Ramadan. Of
Right.
course.
Right. Try my Slivovitz,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
My
So you
homemade
don't ever
rakia.
get to you don't a lot of people don't ever get to know that they're good. I mean, we all think that we're good, but to be good, like to have me walk up to somebody and talk to them about their field collection, I'm gonna know right away, right? I've got tests that I listen for things. Like if I go see a two, if I go to a new battalion or brigade and I talk to the two, I'm like, hey, how accurate is your intel picture? And if they say anything more than 60%, they're full of shit, right? And so
Right.
there's all of these things that yet you learn to understand. Like here's a KPI. When the partnered nation is like, I need Pete, I need my advisor, get him in here. That's I'm doing something because now I'm relevant to the other command. When
Right.
the when Pete comes up in the intel reports and someone's desperately runs up to me and says, Pete, they've targeted you. And I'm like, all right, yes, this means I'm in the game. I've
Yeah,
got a
they're looking
number on
for
my,
you, Pete. Right.
yeah,
You got a
uh,
number.
yeah, I
Well,
mean, that's good.
how about other agencies?
Oh, yeah.
What I was in Kosovo, and I'm working. Two Algerian guys were taking pictures of the base, right? So they take them, they put them into their jail that they have over there, and they call me over. Hey, I think it's a Saida. You need to cut subversion and espionage directed against the army.
Yeah.
Saida. Okay, it's an investigative case. So I'm like, okay, with all the other damn things I got going on, let me come and do yours. So I go over to the tactical infantry place and I go into their area, their interrogation area, where there's interrogators that are trained at Huachuca. You know what they're doing? They're taping everything. And I'm like, take that camera down. I'm not going to have you tape what I'm asking this guy, right? Anyway, I'm doing association matrices. I'm doing different charts. They're calling people down from uh, not NATO, but in what's the name of the place? Anyway, it's in England. They come down and they're assessing what I'm getting out of these guys. It's great information, right? And I'm briefing sync user every day. Every day we're doing a thing, and I'm sitting with the infantry commanders. They got, hey, this is what we got, blah blah blah. And he's like this, straight up. And he's like, hey, hell, tell me more. What do you got? Hey, we got bad guys. We got terrorists. You know, I get a
Yeah.
call from my command. I get a call from my command. You know what they tell me? You're passing it off. They like what you are doing because the CIA sat in on the same damn meetings. And they're like, we want these guys. We're going to turn them. So I got to look in one day, they do the briefing and the guy is briefing about all this intelligence, blah, 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 blah. And I got to look at the user commander and say, I have no Saida case anymore. The information was not good. And I had to eat my shorts because these guys wanted to steal my information. I couldn't say, hey, the CIA is stealing these and going to turn them loose and use them as sources. I couldn't say that. I had to go, case is over. There's no Saida here, so I need to move on. And he looked
That
at
is
me
a
like,
sign that you're good at your job, though. As soon as you get more than one source taken from you, you got to be like, I know how to do this. I can do it all I want. Now I have to find a better way to do it, so I don't do all this hard work for nothing.
in the
Another,
165th,
yeah,
80% of our sources were turned over to national level assets. When we
I lost
left the
mine.
country,
I lost.
80% of the sources were turned over. They were like,
Yeah,
oh, you already did all the work. We made continuity books because
yeah.
Kaniana's like, we need continuity books. We need to do this. Tell all the teams make continuity books. So what did we do? Made all this information available for who? The
Yep.
national level people. And they went through it and they went, I'll take him, and him. They're gone. And now you're
That's
back in the rear going, what the hell am I doing? I'm eating a cheeseburger or, some
yeah.
schnitzel downtown in Darmstadt. And I'm like, did I just do that mission? Is that gone?
Uh,
Whatever. Anyway,
yeah, it is a unnecessary byproduct, and what that turns into is people like not doing reports. Oh, I won't report. I won't report. It is definitely a thing, and you encounter these guys. My approach was to go talk directly to those guys who were on the ground. I talked to Delta, whoever was there, and be like, here's what I'm doing. If you need anything that I have, come and take it. My job is to go meet people that you all can't meet. If there's a message I can get out, if there's anything I can do, And I just worked the relationship so that it didn't matter as long as I was contributing. And usually what happened, Ray, was I ended up working with the higher level units to support the lower level units. So and I'd be on the SOTIF, I'd be, helping those guys. And that's how I got off post a lot, was through their work, their network. I got off the camp
You
through
also had great
alternate
teams.
means.
You had
Yeah.
great teams. Even in the 165th, you were on a great team. You know, there were a
Yeah.
lot of teams that weren't producing, weren't doing it, didn't want to get off base, wanted
So
to
how do
just
you
go
fix
out.
that? How do
You
you,
can't.
you can't. Okay.
You
No.
can't because, I mean, you have to have the right people in the right job. You can't take all of your good people and say, okay, here's my batch of good guys, and I got 16 teams. I got 16 good guys. I'm going to put one on each team, and
Mhm.
hopefully they'll be able to turn these other guys around. That ain't going to work. You got to put, hey, this is where we're having problems at. I need to put a team down here that can run
Mm,
and put one bad guy on that team and four good guys running.
yeah.
If it's like that. The way the 165th was, it was just like they were like, hey, you guys go here, you're on that team, you're going to be down there. You guys had to go find your own, you know, housing to tell them we're getting out. And like I was talking about all the way at the beginning, what were you doing when you go in and you talk to the S2? What are you doing to them? You're assessing them. You're assessing
Yeah.
whether they know what they're doing or they don't know what they're doing. So
That's right.
to say how do we change this, you got to have recruitment. You got to
Mm,
recruit people to be in the field. You can't just take them off the street, and you got to recruit the right people, not because they meet all the requirements, because somebody face to face talked to them and you, as Pete Turner said, you know what? This is a good guy, and you're a trusted asset. Okay, you're at the schoolhouse, and they should be assessed the entire time they're at school. And at any time, people like yourself should be able to say, he doesn't cut it. They're done. What does Delta do? What does Special Forces do? You go to SF training, you can go all the way through it. You could pass the whole thing. And you know what they say? Have a nice day. Go back to your unit,
yeah.
you know, because you didn't make the grade. You
Yeah.
might have done everything and been the top guy, but you didn't have that skill. We should
Yeah.
be able to do the same thing. But
Psych
commanders,
profiles and peer reviews. Yes.
right. But yeah, exactly. Psych profiles. You know how many crazy guys we've run into, buddy?
Oh
How
my
many were in
God.
our unit?
Yeah.
Oh,
The unit was a problem for me, because I was pretty hard charging and no one knew what to do with me. And I got bounced because I was hard charging and self-motivated. I got every person who had me under their NCO ship. They all got a leadership excellent block because I PT'd hard. I won every single board I sat in front of. I did correspondence courses. I looked great. I got passed around. Excellent block. I think I had 7 NCOs in the 2 years that I was in the
right.
165th.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
And when they built our team, we were extras. We didn't have a radio when we deployed. And Chief Smith was brand new out of walk school and as an
She's great
interrogator.
too. She's
She
great.
was great. She was a badass.
Right.
She took great care of us. She stood up in the talk one time and said, "If you guys have a problem with what my guys are doing, you guys should get better ASVAB scores."
Right. Right.
And then we're going to keep doing it. And the commander's like, "Anybody got a problem with Miss Smith?" And they're like, "Nope, we're shutting
None.
up." She torched
None.
them. She took care of us. Dotchko was brand new to the
Yeah,
unit.
you had
He
Bart.
Yeah.
You had
And no one
Dodgko.
knew Bart. No one knew anything about him. No one knew his qualifications. No one said, "Oh, this guy's a great guy. He's going to run this team well." He was an
Right.
asshole, but he knew his job, right? And then Greg and I, we just were guys from ops. And so they just kind of threw it, but it worked because Greg and I weren't afraid to talk to us. Bart wasn't afraid to let us go out and talk to people because we're better at that than he was.
Well,
And
Bart
Miss Smith
trained you
had
too, didn't he? And Miss Smith, they said, hey, you got to do it like this. You need to do this, and
a
here's how
little
you write
bit.
the report.
A little bit, yeah. Not Miss Smith so much. She more just took care of guiding the team and getting the unit off our back. That was
Yeah.
the thing she could do really well. And she even admits it. She's like, "I didn't know what you guys did. I'm an interrogator."
Right.
Bart would make us do stuff that was CI related, but for the most part, I would say his ability to let us do the job allowed us to go out. He taught us get off the camp every day, go talk to people, write reports, prep for tomorrow. Same thing. And
Right.
so we worked hard. That's the biggest thing Bart brought to us, and
But
and so
there's
we did.
there's people that can do the job. Okay. And when I say the job, the 128 jobs,
Right.
right? You can walk in and you can learn it. You can get in the books, you know, the basics, and you can hit the ground running on
Yeah.
just about anywhere that you get put. There's so many that they're getting taken off the street that get thrown into something. I came in as an E5, so I had rank, you know, and I was like, they're like, you're in charge of these, you know, 8 guys. And I'm like, what? What am I doing? I'm a team leader? What, doing what? You know, and I'm like, okay, don't even know what infantry was. I came from the nuke warhead programs, you know, and now they send me to, you know, light infantry division. But you have
Yeah.
to know what you're doing. Um, can I give you an example? When I went
Please.
to the 902nd, okay, I leave the 165th, and I stole Bart's job actually because he went warrant, and I called up and I got a job at the 902nd in Fort Hood. So
Mm.
they sent me to Fort Hood, Texas. I got 30 days of vacation. I got to buy a house, get my wife settled, do all this other things. And I thought, well, let me go and check in what's going on, you know, at the office and tell them I'm here, I'm in town. If you guys need anything, whatever. I go in there and there's a warrant officer. I don't even know her name because she was in and gone just like that. She got fired out of the 902nd because of what I'm about ready to tell you. Another guy, Mark McMillan, an E4, who had came out of school and done nothing, went straight to Fort Hood and didn't know anything about anything. He was in the 902nd. Two people. There's supposed to be a commander, an operations officer, a lead agent, and an agent and an officer, a warrant officer. Two people, her and him. And she was leaving in a week. And she goes, oh, there's a national level surveillance that's going to be happening here. Um, you're going to have to run it. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not even checked into the unit yet, you know," and they're like, okay, you're going to have to run it. So she goes to Huachuca, right? And it's me and Mark. And I make some phone calls, and they're like, well, you got to put in a 6. You got to put in all these requests to do phone tapping, wiring of the vehicles. Go find somebody who can speak Chinese. I found a 4-4 guy in one of the infantry units who was actually, that's a whole other story. But anyway, he was a 4-4 linguist, white as me. You know, they would never suspect that he was there to ride with these guys. Uh, it was from, you know, one of those far eastern nations that I don't want to talk about right now. But anyway, I'm not checked into the unit. So I'm trying to buy a house. I'm trying to get my wife settled. I'm trying to get my furniture going. And I'm doing liaison. I'm in the 3rd Infantry area of operations. Okay. Headquarters, the 3rd Infantry. You know, I'm like, okay, I got 5 generals that I need to talk to tell, hey, these guys are gonna be coming through your area. This is a descent directed mission coming straight out of National, got full access and everything. So I'm doing liaison part of the day, going and do my house another part of the day, going back and doing liaison, going to the phone companies, going to get maps because I know the team's going to be coming in. So I get all this information done. I meet with everybody, and here comes Dave Hammond. Dave's like, "Hey, I'm running the team, brother. What's up?" Like, oh, okay. At least I know somebody's going to be working, you know. And since it was high level, here comes the 902nd commander a week before everything's happening. 902nd commander comes down to pick him up at the airport. I'm briefing him on the way back. I got all these charts and graphs and everything laid out for how the surveillance is going to work, what we've done. And he's briefing me. He's like, you know, I've never heard your name before. He said, you seem to be pretty intelligent. How long you been in the 902nd? I said, I sign in next week. I'm not even in the unit yet. I'm on leave coming in to your unit. He made some phone calls. I had to sign in that day. You know, he's like, you're signed in now. And all of a sudden, all these old guys start coming down to the unit. And they're like from National, from FCA, from the Purple People Eaters, and they're big guys at the 902nd. And all they did was sit around the desk and talk. This is where the 128 jobs comes in. Because after, you know, Dave came in and his team started taking over, everything was already done. We had time to sit back. I had to write all the reports, don't get me wrong, every day. We had to debrief and we had to do all this stuff. But you had to know what the hell you were doing, how to liaise, how to go and talk to somebody. We're froze up there. What happened, Pete?
Yeah. I don't know. We're good. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah,
Can
but
you? Yeah.
these old guys, we sat around and they're like, well, what other jobs have you had? And we started writing them down and writing them down and writing them down. And we came up with 128 different jobs just in, tactical, stractical, strategic, AI, area intelligence, FCA, and just in those jobs, direct counterintelligence jobs that
Yeah.
everybody in the room had been in. I got Chief Warrant Officer fives to, GS 15 sitting right next to me. They're all talking and they're all doing their thing. Like, oh, by the way, write this report and make sure the surveillance is going good. And anyway, that's all I can say about that. But you have to
Yeah.
know what you're talking about. How do you know? How do you know if you got the right guy? I could have come in and been like, I'm on leave. I'm not doing anything. This ain't my bailiwick, and then that E4 is stuck there and they call him and they're like, well, hell, I don't know. I'm an E4. I'm the only one in the office, you know? So how do you know? You as an E4, you would probably said, I need to do some stuff. Let me make some phone calls to find out what I need to do, or I need some help. Let me make that phone call.
I'd tell you exactly what I would do because I basically did this. So when I get to the 309th in Huachuca, I'm an E4, E4P, but I'm an E4, and I became the 2 for a training battalion, which is, a brigade, really, with all these locations scattered around, and I am an E4. So I don't know how to do the job. I have no rank to back me up to do the job. So I just went up to brigade and I said, I am the 2 for this battalion, and I'm going to need your guidance because I don't know where to go or what to do. And I talked to the boss and I said, I'm going to do my best. You're going to get everything you got from me. He's like, you're going to do a great job. Here's what I want from you. Keep brigade off my back. And I'm like, oh man, I've already liaised in a great way so that I can keep brigade off of the boss's back. That's what he cared. He's like, and also I don't ever want to find out that the people who are hung up at security waiting for their clearance, I don't ever want to find out that we're not doing our best. And I'm like, that's easy. I know it's security office. It turns out Nancy Richards was working over there, and I liaised my ass off over there. I'm like, whatever I've got to do, I don't need you to pull any favors. I just need to be able to say these long-term cases, here's the status on them, and here's when I expect an update. And the commander loved that stuff. I only had that job for a short amount of time, but as an E4, and I went to every location where I was the top authority for the battalion, and I'd go to that E7 or that warrant officer, and I'm like, I am not going to be a problem for you. If anything
Right.
is coming down the pipe, you're going to know about it, and I'm going to do my best to not bug you with any bullshit you have enough to do. And they're all like, best 2 ever.
Right. Well, you asked
And we
earlier,
did.
can you go tactical to strategic or
Yeah,
operational as a 2 to strategic or to stractical or strategic? I honestly think it is harder to go strategic to tactical because
I agree.
people feel that, hey, I'm up here, I am here, and tactical's down here, and it's like you're being demoted.
Yeah.
Even though you got a rank. We had a warrant officer 5, okay, who worked in the 25th Infantry with us. He was probably one of the first W5s that were ever made. And he was working at platoon level in the 25th Infantry Division. And I asked him one day, I'm like, why are you here? He's like, I want to be. I want to train you guys. I want you guys to know what there is to do. And I'm like, Irv was his name. And I'm like, God, he's like almost 62 years old. I'm like, you're old, Irv, but you got a lot of knowledge, and I'm glad that you're here. Thank God. It was nice. But
Yeah.
a lot of guys who get the 500th first, or get 902nd first, or get the 650th, God bless you, or you get a DIA mission. You're a purple people leader. And then they're like, okay, you're in the 25th Infantry Division, or you're in the 165th. A lot of people think that they're above everybody else that's there, even
Yeah.
though they don't know the backgrounds of the people that were there. They don't know. They don't know what they've been through. Look, I came in as a fat guy into the 165th. I sat in an office a lot of the times when I was in AMC, but I was working 120 SAT programs. I was doing contractor support. I was out there gone TDY all the time. I was carrying classified to the Pentagon, every day a package of freaking SCI material. I was doing that. They were like, here, take this over. This is the SAP guys, and you hand it through this door right here. And they're like, you open the door, you put it in, boom, you're done. They don't want to know who you are. They know who you are. You know, the people who know. And then you go to the 165. For me, I was in the 25th, so I knew. That's what you were talking about. Tactical, operational, or strategic, back to tactical. Easy move. I knew what you had to do. Strategic to one of the girls who were training us on the Met team for the surveillance course in the 25th Infantry Division was an E3, fresh out of freaking school in FCA on the surveillance team. And she thought her crap didn't stink, you know? And I was like, oh no, oh no. You think that she's going to leave FCA and go to a tactical unit? No, no. And once you're in the political jobs, which thank God I got to be in the political job for a while, you know, you don't have to. You don't have to go back to tactical because you know the right people who can pull the strings to keep you there. That girl will probably never ever went tactical ever. Couldn't stand it.
There's something to be said too for, like, in my ability, I was in the Army 3 different ways: regular, reserves, and then Department of Army. And that enabled me to stay at the ground level, right? And so instead of bouncing around and going and getting all these schools and promoting, I mean, you know, because like once you're in E6, it's really tough to leave the camp on a regular basis because you've got operational shit, leadership to do. You've got a different job. I was able to stay at the ground level, and so I just got better and better and better. And like I became this incredible ground collector. And I've never met anybody who's got more time on the ground outside the post in a tactical setting. Very narrow cylinder, but we don't have a lot of that because you tend to graduate up. And so we're more generalists than we are specialists ever. And I don't
Well,
know. I mean, is there too much of that? Or should we have some people that are like, if you like the field, if you like going to different countries, we're going to have you do that and focus your training and your skill set there. By the way, I was allowed to walk away from the Army all 3 times. No one said, hey, you know what? We need to keep this guy.
right. We
And
spent a
so,
whole hell of a lot of money training him.
right. And I'm good. I'm good
Well,
on the ground. And so if it happened to me, it happened to 100 different people who were just allowed to leave. When I left the regular Army, the commander never called me to say, hey, what do we got to do to keep you in?
no, no one.
And they're
Nobody.
supposed to, you know?
Right. That's that whole continuity of knowledge that is lost. You know, so many people, they don't care if you get out. They had a riff while we were in the 165th, a reduction in force for people who don't know that.
Mhm.
And they got rid of half of the freaking battalion. You know, a lot of people are like, yeah, I'll take that money. I'm gone. And they lost continuity.
Yeah.
They lost people who were supposed to be there. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, neither. I don't know. And so, what about the thought of specializing people into very specific things? Like, and I know what happens in certain areas, but even tactically, it seems like we need someone like that. Or how about a program where it takes old Ray and old Pete, and we sit with tactical collectors, and we get paid a little bit of money to go, here's how you do this. You know, hey boss, let me go sit with the bosses. Let me go sit with the
Right.
battalion commanders. Here's how you work your CI guys. Here's how you work your
Well,
humenters.
I think that they should have jobs for that. I think that they should have, you're going to do liaison. That's your job. We're going to
Right.
teach you that, and then you're going to go out and do it. If you go to strategic debriefer, you know what you don't do? You don't go to a tactical unit. You go
That's
to
right.
a debriefing unit. You know, if they teach you CIFSO, you're going to go do operational mission. If they teach you JCETA, you're going to go do operational mission. Why aren't they teaching that in school? They should teach you liaison, and you're going to be a liaison officer. That's great. That's wonderful because we need people that set everything up and go in, like you said, and make sure everything is online so that the operational team or individual, you know, can go in and do that. And here's another thing. Once you go warrant, you know, your operational days are basically gone,
Done. Yeah.
done. You know, they told me, hey, we want you to go warrant. And I was like, no. They're like, why don't you want to go warrant? It's a lot more money. And I'm like, I'm not in this for the money. I want to be an operational agent. I want to be on the ground to do this, you know, and I want to work. I don't want to do beans and bullets. and make sure that the team is okay. I've
Yeah.
seen that. I've seen the people. It's bullshit. It's stress. It's going to meetings every day, and I mean, there's a reason for them, and God bless the warrants. But if you don't have a good one, you don't have a good team. So anyway, what you were talking about, I think that there should be at the schoolhouse assess people. Hey, this guy's a good talker. This guy's a good whatever. Uh, this guy's coming from infantry and he knows infantry. Maybe he'll be a good tactical soldier. Let's make him a tactical soldier. This guy's I had a guy in the 25th Infantry Division as an E4. He had his degree from MIT in freaking aerospace engineering. Our first sergeant was being stupid one day, and he said, "Hey, what do you think you are, a freaking rocket scientist or something?" He said, "You know what? I got my master's degree from MIT, and yeah, I am. I'm a rocket scientist." And he looked at that first sergeant, didn't know what to say to him. He's like, you know, because he wasn't doing infantry stuff. But we got guys like that shouldn't have been there. They should have been at the other levels that are TSCM, that are working on engineering stuff, and it's a great thing too. You just fall into TSCM. It's like, what are you doing? Well, okay, I'm in this unit now, you know?
Yeah.
So we don't have a thing. We don't have anything in place. And, there's a CI uh, group that I belong to that I look into every so often. And there's a bunch of old guys in there that still have contacts, and they should be putting in stuff to the schoolhouse to say, hey, there's a group of us, and here's the names of us, and here's what we've done, and this is what we think should happen. But mostly, you look at the groups that get together like that and try to talk. All they do is talk about CI guys. What do you think? What's going on with this and that? And it's like going to the VFW. Nothing wrong with the VFW, but it's a bunch of stories. Here's my story. Here's my story. Let's drink a beer. Here's my story.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah. I mean,
work. I want to do it right, and I want to make the Army right.
you could easily have a couple of older agents come in to Huachuca or wherever they're training and tell people, and just take out lieutenants going through OBC, OAC, and take out people in the agents course or the human course or even, and just my job is to hang out here with you guys, be a mentor. And that's what I do. I take two people to a meal every 5 days a week, and
Right.
that's 10 meals a week, and then 40 a month, and the next thing you know, you're touching a lot of people, and you're just being available to those guys so that when they've got a question that they can't ask in class or they want some advice on something, you can provide it. Because to build good people, one, they have to be valuable. I mean, I got treated like shit in the 165th when I was there,
Uh,
and look, when I put my promotion packet in the first time, it got kicked back. You were my brand new platoon sergeant, and I was pissed at you for decades because I'm like, I've done all this stuff. I've been kicked around, passed around. I'm great at what I'm supposed to do as an E4, and I just
right.
got bounced again. And then when my packet did go through, Chaz Owen, I'll say this openly, he said that the counterintelligence agent's correspondence course didn't count. So he took points out of my packet. What first sergeant does that? I mean,
I
it's
don't know, man. That was
so
wrong.
wait, and yeah,
And
it is wrong.
if I bounced you, there had to be some reason why either the
No,
points
it
were
was
too
out
high
of
or
your
whatever.
hands. It was out of your hands. It
The
was done like
jackass
that.
that was there before me, there, you were there. Okay. When I came into the unit, I came in and they're like, you're the platoon sergeant of all the teams. I'm like, what? I want to
Yeah,
go
how
out
do
and
I do
work.
that?
Right. And you got 16 teams underneath of you, and they're in the country and they're going to be running, and you got to make sure, oh, you got the ops and everything else. But anyway, we had
Yeah.
Norwood. Norwood, right?
Oh, that guy was terrible.
Okay, this
That
guy
guy was
was he
terrible.
talking about himself in third person. I'd love to help you, but Norwood can't help you, whatever.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
commander at the time was fucking, excuse my language, was having sexual intercourse with half the wives in the battalion, you know, and it was pathetic. My guys came in to do an interview with him, and he's like, you got a picture of your wife and blah blah blah. And he came
Oh,
back to
Jesus.
me, one of the guys, he's asking me these crazy questions. So I go in with him and I'm like, did you ask this guy this question? I got to turn you into the IG, man.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. And they're like, who are you? You're new with the unit. You don't even know what's going on. He got fired. He got kicked out because he was doing this. They found out that he was doing all this stuff and had shit hanging over everybody's head. Then we got Condiano. I don't know what was worse. You know,
let's get off of that. Let's get off. I desperately want to talk about those things, but I want to get away from that. So I just want, and we've done it for an hour, so let's just close it up with this. Give me your no shit there I was story. What's a cool thing from the world? Like, we get to do all these things, we complain about the structure and the lack of support and all these things, but we do get to do amazing things. So when you're thinking about like most deadly, most exciting, most interesting, what comes to mind?
Doing independent ops in Croatia. It was before the Yemen explosion where they ran a ship into one of our naval ships. Anyway, S-47 was going out and S-48 was coming in, and I was running the country at the time. We had a warrant officer that came in, great guy, Paul Osmond, but he was doing the other side of the country. And Slobodan Milosevic was running around, trying to escape out of Serbia. And anyway, I had to set up things for S-47 and S-48 to go out. And I had been working for about 48 hours straight. And the commander of that unit, I had to go to briefings every so often. And I went in and everybody's scrambling around like, what's going on? And they're like, well, we can't get this communications thing across the border. And everybody's trying to get all the communications thing. I stood up on a desk in front of everybody, about 150 people. And I'm like, everybody, stop what the fuck you're doing. You're going to screw up my shit that I got going on. Okay. I got other ops that I'm working with. And because I'm doing liaison with everybody from national level all the way down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, stop what the fuck you're doing for 5 minutes. If smoke them, if you got them. And I look at the sergeant major and commander. I said, what's the first thing I told you when I got here? I will fix it if it's a problem. And then I made a phone call to the guy who runs customs. And I said, let that through. It's mine. 5 minutes later, a guy called up that sergeant major and said, I don't know what happened, but they're letting me through. Here comes that. And then I said, oh, by the way, there's a team down there that's going to, those are the boats that you hear, the fast boats. They're going to be doing security. And there's a team down there that you can dive with because they're going to dive the whole port and make sure it's okay so that there's no bombs or anything here. And then they're all like, you know, thank God you're here. And how did you do this? And how much do we owe you? And because they thought I was civilian and, you know, I was working civilian stuff and had a security for S4 at the time, you know. Gotta love that. But that was a no shit. I liked it. It felt good. Saving lives kind of thing moment that all the work, all the liaison, and I had to leave because I had to go to Vukovar because Slobodan Milosevic was trying to leave out of that way. And they wanted somebody there to make sure that they weren't coming through Vukovar on the edge of Serbia. And we were doing PIFWICs. We had 4 PIFWIC. Do you know what a PIFWIC is? You know,
it's just great because I love all these acronyms. You know,
people indicted for war crimes in the War Crimes Tribunal. I caught 3 of them over there, and you know, turned them over to the PIFWIC guys. So they're like, "Hey, go over there and make sure nobody's coming through the border because it's a really small border." And had to do that and then go back and work with these lugheads while I'm doing mission with the Serbians, with the Croats, with the Muslims, with everybody, and trying to keep a straight face and making all the reports and not doing anything. I lost like 50 pounds. I was like, I'm stressed out like a big dog. But working that mission, I felt good. Doing like I was doing the job. Nobody messed with me. They gave me a buttload of money to go out and do stuff. And I was like, okay, you know, IFC,
money
ICF,
helps.
I mean, ICF is a good thing.
Yeah, money helps. I know that people think you don't need it, and sometimes you don't. But boy, it's nice when you have it. And it's funny when people who have no idea what it is or what it's about, when they try to hold it back from you, like that 03. I love that 03. And whenever I hear this, I would always go for the teams that I was supporting or I was working with or around. I'd go take care of it. I'm like, hey man, let me show you this rig that handles this. It's this big. And as long as they're not stealing stuff, then there's no problem. Get off their backs about this. They need this help. Let them help you. And then they would get it. But because no one ever explains this to whoever that captain is, they just think that we're like, we for sure work in the black all the time, where things we might know we're in the gray, it might be charcoal gray, but we know we're in the gray. We wouldn't want anybody poking their nose in because from the outside, it seems like a lot of the things we do, to include drinking in a combat zone, is against the rules. But you have to have a healthy disregard for what the rules are to get to talk to the nasty, ugly people we got to get to know and make our friends.
Well, we scratched the surface of Stractical and Tactical and a little bit of the other things, but there's so much more to talk about in FCA and black programs and, DASSER programs, and you know what I'm talking about, the cover stuff that, that's a whole other bailiwick, buddy.
Yeah. Well, let's not get into that bailiwick this time. Do you want to ask me any questions before we wrap this up?
No, I had a good time doing this. I didn't know what we were going to be doing, what we were talking about. I avoid talking about this stuff. My family and friends, they don't know, they don't understand the training that we had to go through or the stuff that we had to do to become an agent, to do the agent stuff that we did or what I did, or I wish I could tell them, but I can't. They keep telling me, write a book. And I'm like, yeah, okay, right. I'm not Tom Clancy, and I'm not, I signed a lot of paperwork that I'm not going to be talking about stuff. So, yeah.
Let me wrap this up then. Stand by. Let me roll the credits.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much.